Perfect. So thank you everyone so much for joining today. Today we're going to look at, is Volunteer Impact, the Enterprise Edition, the right software for your volunteer organization? And I'll let you know a little bit of information about the enterprise system, how that's different from the standard, and in what cases that's suitable for your organization. So a little bit about myself. My name is Didier Stobar. I'm the software sales advisor at Better Impact. I'm actually located in Geelong, in Victoria. A bit about my background. Basically, I've been working in technology over 10 years, helping and advising different organizations on their digital platforms. I've spent the last year advising a diverse range of organizations on how to make the most of Better Impact and how to make the most of that change if you do move to Better Impact. I've got extensive knowledge of the Better Impact software modules and how organizations can transition with ease and get the most out of the system. So a couple of takeaways from today's webinar. We're going to have a look at some common problems facing volunteer service teams. We're going to have a look at why the right software tools matter, have a bit of an explanation on the standard versus the enterprise system, and what will work best for your organization. We're going to have a high-level overview of Volunteer Impact, specifically the Enterprise Edition. And as I said, at the end, we'll have a few resources, a link for your PDU certificate, and also the link for the recording a little while after we're finished here. So some very common problems we see with a lot of organizations. The too much data entry. A lot of that comes from using things like Excel or Sheets, using disconnected tools across your organization's departments or locations. So we see a lot of different departments or locations using different tools, using things like Salesforce that might not be suited for volunteer management, and using other things that, are not getting the most out of your time and making that data management a little bit more difficult. So that obviously leads to not enough time to lead and engage your volunteers. So we obviously want our software to free up that time for you, to make things easier, and obviously free up that time so you can engage with your volunteers. Finding affordable tools leadership will approve. We understand that the approval process can be a lengthy, detailed process. Sometimes you're involving your IT team, your board, your management. We totally understand that process. And of course, we're here to help manage that and make that process easy for you and provide all the information. A big issue at the moment is insufficient security for your confidential volunteer data. So that is a huge thing for us at the moment, security. That's one of our highest priorities, and something we do pride ourselves with. So I'll be exploring security a little bit more and explaining that, and a little bit more information on common problems, and us being the solution. A little bit more about security. Now, protecting your volunteers' data is a huge priority at the moment. So one easy way to tell that the volunteer service or the company is secure is the ISO certification. So ISO 27001 is the world's best known standard for information security management systems. ISO certification means that the volunteer management vendor respects all the best practices in the international standard. Having the actual certificate rather than simply following the guidelines is an important distinction, because that means the vendor has been audited by an independent body once a year to make sure those standards are being met. So that's something we've just done again this year, just been audited and just obtained that ISO certification again. So that's a really important certification to look at the moment when you're reviewing your volunteer management softwares. And that's something, it's a huge priority for us at the moment. Now, why having the right tools for the job matters. So this is a really interesting survey. It's a G2 2019 State of Software Happiness Report, which basically states that more than half of all employees are unhappy at work because of the software tools they're using. So that is quite an alarming stat. More than half of your employees are not happy to job because of the software. So that, for us, we feel like is an easy fix, finding that software that manages everything. Volunteer Impact is, of course, a end-to-end volunteer management software. So that means we manage everything to the very start for the advertisement and to the very end for the reporting and everything in between. So that's something we pride ourselves in, having a software management suite that is easy to manage, that your employees and your volunteers can have an easy time understanding and learning the system and really growing your program. Just to lead on to that as well, about 1 in 8 employees has quit a job because of mismatched software. So that can be using the wrong piece of software, you're using too many pieces of software to doing multiple things and making that process harder, or using something like Excel or spreadsheets, that's something that's not secure, that is not really suited for that management process. So that's another alarming stat. 1 in 8 employees has quit a job. So obviously, we all go about trying to retain staff and making that process easier. So that's kind of showing you why it's important to find that right piece of software. So let's get you working with tools that make you feel less frustrated and rather more empowered and productive when you do your job. So time to explore a little bit of how Volunteer Impact can help you achieve that and go into a little bit more detail. So a little bit of, who uses the Enterprise Edition. This can be different councils, different library system, hospitals, chaptered organizations. That basically means organizations that have different locations, different departments, or any other way to kind of break up your organization if you do things slightly differently, or if you want privacy for your organizations, and things like schools, universities, and much more. Now, just to touch briefly on some enterprise clients around Australia and also around the world. So we've got very well-known organisations such as the Cancer Council, Zoos Victoria, and then things overseas. A lot of variety, as you can see. You've got things like museums, Cancer Council, zoos, huge variety of organizations. And the reason for that is the software is completely customizable. So you may set things up, completely different to other organizations that use the software. And that's completely customizable and manageable in your system. Just to add to that as well, your different enterprise systems, what we call sub-accounts. This can be different departments, different locations. That can also be customized to have things like, specific qualifications, specific custom fields, specific activities and shifts. Anything that is different based on your location or department, that can be customized in the system and is one of the reasons you would have the enterprise system. Now, just to touch a little bit on the standard edition. So this is probably the most commonly used version we have at the moment. Like all our different versions, it does have unlimited administrators. So you can have as many managers, volunteer coordinators, even board members using that system. There is an unlimited amount of those. Important to note, probably the biggest reason the standard is different to the enterprise is in the standard, all administrators can see all your volunteers. So that is probably the main reason why we see a lot of people use the enterprise system, is to break up your administrators and your volunteers into private sub-accounts, private departments, private locations, whatever term you use for that, and kind of allow that privacy to happen. So to add a little bit to that, as you can see, this diagram here, these colors at the bottom here, that shows the different sub-accounts. So what that means is somebody in the animal services won't be able to see, others in that museum account. That is your admins and also your volunteers. So that's a way, I guess, you can break up the privacy. You can make that security and privacy a little bit more high level, ensuring that privacy always takes place. At the very top here, example city, that is basically the enterprise level. So you can have a number of people at that enterprise level. That's where you can basically see all the information to all the different sub-accounts. You can communicate to all the volunteers in those different sub-accounts. You can also do reports on all those different sub-accounts. So it's essentially an overview of everything you need. And yeah, basically from there, you can branch out to your sub-accounts. Where it says emergency services and libraries, that is basically your different regions. Regions is basically a way to further categorize your sub-accounts. So in this example, you've got your emergency services, we'll show you police and fire department. That's just a way to categorize your different sub-accounts. That level doesn't really have much access, but what you can do is you can give an admin access to emergency services, for example, and both of those sub-accounts. So that's a way that you can have different sub-accounts and have the different enterprise level. Important to note, these regions are only available with the Plus account. With the normal enterprise level, you won't have regions. Basically, you just have the enterprise and the sub-accounts down the bottom. But of course, you'll have the privacy and the different categories with that sub-account as well. Now, I'm just going to lead into the demo now, which is going to focus on the enterprise system. Now, the first page I'm showing you here is the landing page or the advertisement page. So this landing page is an example of what you see in the enterprise system. What you can do is you can have separate landing pages or advertisement pages with every sub-account, or you can have one overall landing page like you see here that basically breaks up the different opportunities, the different areas of interest, types of tasks. It can even go how often, how long. It goes into more detail. So these essentially are the regions that I showed you on that previous tab. What you can do if you're a potential volunteer is click on the region, click on the specific role that has more information. So you can have pictures and videos at the top here. You can show the upcoming shifts, what qualifications are required. And if the volunteer's interested in applying for that role or for that region, they just click on this fill in application button here. Now on this main page, a number of different ways you can navigate. As I said, a number of different areas you can click on. But basically what will happen if I'm clicking on the festivals and events page here, and you've got a number of different roles advertised here. When they click in this fill in application button, that will take them to the page where they create their account. If they already have a username or password with Better Impact with another organization, they would simply just log on here. Or if they also volunteer for another sub account or another department you have, they can use that same login and they can easily navigate those different sub accounts as well. So, for example, if they're interested in applying to be in festivals and events, but also in the city library department as well, they can indicate that in the application, and whoever has access to that application can simply move them to that organization, which I'll show you in a second. So once they do navigate that, that's obviously going to take them to the relevant part of that application, and that application process is going to start. Now, the applicants will go to the relevant sub account or department that you have. You'll also have an applicant status at the front page here. An example of a volunteer that wants to do multiple organizations. Once they apply, a profile will be created. So on that profile, you'll have things like the contact, the custom field. When they're available, you can communicate directly to that volunteer from their profile here. You can see their schedule, and you can also see their organizations. So the emergency services here is the regions that I mentioned before. And these with a little black box next to it, they're the different sub accounts. So I can see that Veronica is a volunteer since 2017 at the museum. If I want to add her to different sub accounts, I can simply do add to organization as a volunteer. Now, important to note that only the enterprise level admin will have access to do this. So that's important to note when you are kind of selecting the people with that access. Another way to do it is, like I mentioned before, having an intake account. Once you have an intake account, that person will basically have a similar view to this, and they can simply move the volunteer to that organization. As you can see, it can be multiple. So if you had a volunteer that's simply volunteering for all of your organizations or all your different sub accounts, you can add them through the system here. Now, as well as having access to the volunteers and having that that capability to kind of move them across different organizations, you can also add your regions here. So you can also have organizations not in a region. You can manage your organizations, tick them as visible or not visible as well. You can also manage your news and your newsletters from here. So as you can see, these are broken up into different organizations. So your different sub accounts have different newsletters. You can make it so that all your organizations will have the same newsletter and have the same information. You'll get an overview of the different statuses the volunteers are at in your different sub accounts. So as you can see, you can see your applicants, in process, accepted, and all the different statuses we have and sub statuses for things like archived. Obviously that can be exported, that data as well. Same with the hours. You can see based on the different organizations, what hours you have for the different time periods. So you can break that up into the different time periods, and you can see, what the hours are, what that comparison is, what the difference is. And of course, you can see that in the reporting as well. Same with the schedule status. This is essentially just an overview of what's happening on that day. You can see you've got 2 out of 9 shifts that are vacant, 7 out of the 9 are confirmed for that specific day. And those are the different sub accounts that you can see. So as you can see, it's a really good overview that everything that's happening in those sub accounts and in those different departments. An easy way to switch from the enterprise level to the different sub accounts as well is simply this button up the top. You can click on those different sub accounts. And for example, if you had a look at the overview, you can say, okay, there's 1 vacant shift. To change that, all you need to do is click on this account, move to that sub account, and then schedule a volunteer to that role. So it's a really simple way to kind of get an overview, see the hours and the statuses, and then make the changes that you need from there. Now, another really handy feature from the enterprise level is the search and the email or the communication feature. So from here, this view where you see the volunteer statuses is usually what you would see in the different sub accounts. You can simply select, okay, I want to see all the accepted volunteers in that sub account. What feature you get in that enterprise level is the different organizations. So I can select the different regions, I can select the different sub accounts or departments, or I can select all at the same point as well. So if I wanted to communicate with just your emergency services and I just wanted to know, okay, who are those accepted volunteers? I can click that search button. That's going to show up with the 23 volunteers who are part of that region. And then I can send out an email using a template. And that code is going to be the first name of the volunteer. So it's a really easy way to communicate and search for those volunteers that you need as well. Now, on top of that overall search, what you can do is go down into the different filters and search criteria. An example of that, if you need to know who is generally available on a Monday and a Friday. So if you really need to fill that shift, you can see basically who's available, and that's going to come up with all the volunteers available in that shift as well. That can be multiple search criteria. So this can be, a number of things like feedback fields, scheduled dates, even qualifications. So if I want to check, okay, who's done the criminal record check and the background check and currently not expired. I can search the 2 sub accounts. I can see that 25 people have that specific qualification, and I can send out an email or a text message to those volunteers in the system as well. As well as save email templates, basically we've got a email history tab here. This won't show because it's currently logged at the sub account level or the department level, but that is a feature that can be used in that enterprise system as well. And a little bit more, I guess, on that overview of the enterprise level is the reporting system. So if you want to see hours by organization at that enterprise level access, you can select what regions or what sub accounts that you see those hours at. So if I want to see all your volunteers for 3 different sub accounts, I want to see all the hours by the average. I can see here, okay, the example City Museum is the one with the hours, and you can see number of volunteers by that organization as well. So that gives a really good overview. As well as that, you can have the hours trend, which I'll need to select a status. As you can see, there's a huge number of volunteers you can do that report on. That's going to give you a really easy to read, easy to see report that can be exported, shared to the other organizations if you need as well. That's going to show you the hours trend for all your different sub accounts. And of course, you can select which sub accounts or which regions you do that search for as well. Similar with the comparisons chart, you can do that and export that data as well. If you need to do that schedule report and see that summary, that can be done as well, selecting the different organizations. We also have a personal profile raw data report. So similar to this view, the personal profile raw data report essentially makes it possible to report on anything in the system that you have. So that includes custom fields, that includes qualifications, anything that's in the system you can report on, you can export, you can bring out to the system and look at those numbers more carefully. So that's something that's always available. And as you can see,
why is it not connecting to my headphones?
Having that enterprise level access gives you a lot of freedom and information that you need at that top level, as well as communicating. Obviously, reporting makes it really simple to export those reports, provide them to who you need in the organization, and just get that general overview of everything you need, and makes it, quite simple to change to the different sub accounts, make those changes if you need, or simply let the right administrators know changes need to be made. Last thing I'll touch on with the enterprise level is certain things that can be made available at the different sub accounts. So as an example, basically your visibility for your templates. You have the ability to basically choose what activities, what qualifications, what custom fields are available at what level. So inside those custom fields, you can see that there's different ticks here. So if this example, the interview notes, is only used for the emergency service, for example, you can untick the rest of these sub accounts. That's only going to be available for the emergency services. Similar to, anything that you need available at all the different sub accounts or all the different regions, you can select all organizations, or you can make that selected organizations. So that really gives that enterprise level a little bit of power, on what are some of the similar fields, what are some of the similar qualifications, or what are the things that are really specific to that sub account or that department. So important to note that specific things can be created at the sub account level. You do have that access, but something like the background check, this is available to most organizations apart from the museum. So that is an option as well to kind of make that, specific to the right organizations. Now, you can configure this. So if you need specific things done by just the administrators at the sub account level, that can essentially be left for those admins to do, and that enterprise level won't have the ability to do that. That's done at the sub account level. This can be just, an overview for your communication, for your reporting, and just to see a general overview of where your volunteers are at. So like I said earlier, a lot of this can be configured. You can pin your searches, favorites and pages, make things, a little bit easier to navigate in the system. And you can configure that enterprise level for how you need that as well. So that is a general overview of that enterprise level. Hopefully that gave you some good insight about how that's used. And I'll go back to the slides, and then we'll head to some question time as well pretty soon. Had a couple of people message in the group about having a recording. If you've been late, or I think one person's had audio issues, there will be a link sent out for that recording. It will be sent out just a little bit after the webinar's done. So yeah, don't stress, everyone will get a recording, and you can watch this back for when you need as well. Now, a little bit of info about Better Impacts. So Better Impact started by a fluke. Our CEO, Tony, had a passion project of building a web-based volunteer management software solution for a residential hospice. So that basically founded and birthed the beginnings of a global We're Here to Help company. So we've been going since 2001. So very, very long time in the industry. We're a smaller company with the global impact. We've got offices in the UK, Canada, US, and Australia. We've got customers all around the globe. We specialize in volunteer management software, volunteer impact. We do also provide a donor, client, and member impact solution that integrates all together with volunteer impact. And we do pride ourselves on having, some really good reviews from our customers. Basically that the Trustpilot review system that we use, we actually average 4.8 out of 5 in that software. So yeah, we really pride ourselves on having that good feedback and those good reviews from our clients. That's because a number of things, being a simple system to use, doing all your end-to-end volunteer management needs, having the security and privacy, and then having amazing support as well. One person that's just joined the call is Andy Fryer. Andy's the operations manager in Australia and New Zealand. He basically heads up the support team that is available 24/7, 5.5 days a week. So Monday through to Saturday morning in Australia and New Zealand. And that's a really big part of why we do receive so many great reviews and why we do have so much great feedback. We do try and make things as easy as possible when you're transitioning to a new piece of software. And that's definitely one of the things we're really well known for as well.